Yeah.
Yeah, going back, I think honestly, a lot of the problem, if it's a problem, a lot of the misunderstanding right now is just based upon the fact that they're called medical spas, right? I mean, I almost wish that, and this goes back to long ago when 10 years ago, I was thinking that the term medical spa is not the perfect term for this, but unfortunately, or fortunately, it doesn't matter. That's the term that's used. That's what people are using. So we have to go with it. But there's a lot of misunderstanding, among the media probably as well. I think is another one that you didn't mention, but government agencies, the public, the media, they don't necessarily know the nuanced difference between a spa and a medical spa, or a medical spa and a plastic surgery practice, even though we know that medical spas are much closer to plastic surgery practices than they are to day spas. They are medical facilities. But the problem is, because it's got that word spa in it, and we've seen this for years, it kind of throws people off a little bit. Was a little bit surprised by some of the stance that some of the plastic surgeons were taking, but then after talking to you both, I recognize it, because you don't want to put yourself in a situation here where you're on defense trying to justify your existence as a medical facility, particularly if you don't have your act together. And that's the main thing. And we know that a lot of medical spas simply don't have their act together. Texas is a state that we're going to be watching very closely, because they're trying to deal with these issues in a proactive manner, which they always have, and the state of Texas has always been very good at that. But we see immediately how complicated it can be when you start trying to address these issues, because things come out of the woodwork that you didn't even think about. When I first saw the order, I thought, oh, this is a no-brainer. It's great. Medical spas can be open. They got to follow the rules. I was dealing with other ancillary issues, like how do you do lip filler treatments when you're wearing a mask and things like that. Turns out that's the least of the issue. The issue here is the public and the government itself's understanding of these rules. And it goes back to, and I know we'll maybe get into this a little bit more, but, one of the things that we're trying to do with our model rules in Texas that we've introduced, and we're going to be introducing and lobbying and advocating for, is the very first provision in that states medical spas are medical facilities. It's like Article 1 in everything that we put forward. And if we had that, it might clear a lot of this up. But unfortunately, I also think not to go on too much, but the cosmetology issue here is an important one to recognize, because that applies to everybody across the board. If you've got a medical spa and you are you're confident that you're compliant, you're taking it slow, you're being very conservative and thoughtful with your advertising and the things that you're doing, doesn't mean, though, that they're not going to look at the spa services that you're providing and look at those in a different light. So things like hydrofacials is one thing I've heard a lot of, dermaplaning, microblading, anything like that, you've got to be careful about, because it just takes one enterprising reporter in Austin or wherever, San Antonio, to be like, I'm going to go look into this, and now you're fighting back. And we've seen in Texas how bad it can be to be behind the eight ball in the media with these issues. So, interesting times.
Michael, you have any other additional takeaways?
Yeah, not really. It is interesting from the perspective that, on paper, they should be, med spas can be open. They're legally can be, but these dynamics really make you want to hit the pause button.
Yeah.
And so, my advice is just to proceed cautiously. If you're a med spa, you are in compliance, and you think it's worth it from a risk perspective, to go ahead and open.
Alex, what about from the whole industry perspective?
Yeah, I think as it's interesting, because all of this kind of goes back to what we're trying to do as an organization through AmSpa, and what you've been trying to do as a law firm, what ByrdAdatto's been trying to do as a law firm for years now. And that is, the industry perception here has to be that medical spas are medical facilities. And if you're going to open, and it's, in some ways, this is all very counterintuitive. And I know we're going to get some pushback from medical spas for saying, be careful, be cautious. They're gonna go up in arms based upon what the rule says. But perception is reality a lot of times in this industry. And
I'll just add to that too. I mean, what the big picture of the reason AmSpa exists, the reason we talk about compliance is for patient safety. I mean, we want medical spas to be treated like a medical practice or medical facility because the services are medical as defined by the state, and so you have to have some boundaries around that make it safe for the patients.
Well, and the bottom line is that what is best for the industry, and what's best for the industry is to have the public and the government understand that we are a safe, compliant, medically focused industry, and that is almost leading. It's almost the tail wagging the dog a little bit here, because we have to show everybody that we are safe and compliant, that we're medical, before we can start being treated like that. And right now, the industry is not necessarily being treated like that in large ways because of some of the non-compliance we've been dealing with, including in the state of Texas. And I have no doubt that what happened in Houston over the past 18 months has had a large impact on how this is being addressed right now. So we have to make sure that people understand that when you walk into a medical spa, especially right now, the medical protocols that are in place, you're looked at by a doctor, you feel like you're in a doctor's office to some respect. And if you're not going to do that, I agree with you. I would not open, because the eyes are going to be on this. I mean, it just takes one COVID-19 related, infection or death or whatever it is, put back to a medical spa where this is all set back for 6 months, a year, or a long time. So we have got to be vigilant. I want our medical spas in Texas, and in Texas we have the most members in Texas of any state. So this is a huge deal for us. We want them to be comfortable. And the fact of the matter is that right now, if you're rushing to open, you need to take a pause and just take a step back and say, this is not a legal issue. It's not a compliance issue. It's a public perception issue. And we've got to just take it slow, tap the brakes, be conscious of what's going on, and make sure that you are uber compliant, and be ready to respond to any questions about that. Because if you're that one who gets a reporter, undercover, everyone on your team has got to be responding in the same way, now more than ever.
And that's going to be a perfect segue into us ending this video, because this week we have a theme, and this week's theme for our video is all about the different things that you need to do to prepare yourself to open your med spa. So throughout this week, we will actually have special guests joining us and talking about different areas to look at between your patients, your facilities, and yourself, you the providers, of ways to protect yourself as you're gearing up to open, whether or not you're soft opening or preparing to open by the end of this week. We'll have videos throughout the week making sure that everyone can be thinking about the same things that Alex has alluded to. But I know we'll be a little bit short on time. Alex, thanks again for joining us.
Of course. I'm talking compliance all day, so just let me know.
All right. Michael, good to see you.
Yeah. All right.